My guest is Vern Gosdin. Vern, I would think that if in country music we had an award for comeback of the year, it should go to you.
Well, I tell you, I'd take it, Ralph.
Yeah.
I
You
could use an award about now.
you have not had a hit record since 1984, have you? Certainly not a number one record.
No, not. I've had a few records, but none of them really done that much.
Set 'em Up Joe recently scored in the number one position.
Yep.
And I believe in '84 you had
Can
I
tell
Can
by
Tell
the
by the
way
Way
you
You
dance.
Dance. I love that song.
Thank you.
This has been a good year for you.
Been a good year for me, yes.
Who names you the voice?
I never could figure that out. I don't know who started.
Suddenly
that.
one day I heard somebody say they call him the voice. I said, "You mean old Vern?" Yeah, he's got a good voice, but that's become sort of a disc jockey handle for you in many areas.
It'll make you. It keeps me in line. If somebody introduces me as a voice, boy, if I can't go out and do a lousy job in my mind. I got to try a little extra harder to live up to that. I'm gonna find out one of these days who started it.
How long have you been in show business?
I would imagine about 20, going on 25 years.
You started as a brother act, didn't you?
Rex and I were touring and
Rex
recording.
and Vern, the Gosdin brothers.
The Gosdin brothers, yeah.
And then I know your brother passed away,
About 4 years ago.
but you had split prior to that, hadn't you?
Yeah, he was doing some recording on his own, and I was doing the same thing. And he passed away about 4 years ago.
I'll tell you, Vern, where I remember you're really beginning to pick up some steam was when you began to make records with Janie Fricke or Amy Lou Harris singing the girls' parts on the records. Hanging On. What else?
Amy Lou did Hanging On, and Yesterday's Gone With Me. And they were both singles, and they were back-to-back on the record, and both of them were top 10 records.
And then after that, you picked up Janie Fricke, who at that time was a studio singer,
Yeah,
wasn't she?
And a good one at that, yeah.
Which song did you do with her?
I did a couple albums with her, and Mother Country Music, Till the End.
But for a while, the key part of your sound was your voice, background by an extremely strong woman's voice.
I like to do that too. It's just a shame that these artists have got to be on so many different labels. You can't. It's hard to get together with somebody. But I'd love to do some more with Emmy Lou, and I'd like to do some with Janie.
But because they're on other labels, you're at CBS,
Mm-hmm.
so the lawyers get involved, don't they?
I would imagine so. Yeah,
Vern, what's your full name?
that's it.
You don't have a middle name?
Vernon Gosdin. No, I
Oh,
don't.
it's Vernon Gosdin.
Yeah,
Where are you from?
born and raised in Woodland, Alabama. So
What'd you do before you got into show business?
my daddy was a farmer, and I was learning real quick to be one. Well, I did learn to farm some, but I enjoyed it. It was rough, but when I look back now, back then I thought it was the roughest thing I'd ever been involved in, would ever be involved in. I did, but then when I got away from it, I missed it. There was something about being on the farm with your family. There was 9 of us kids, and we were real close knit, and it was a part of my life that I miss a lot.
Can you name, as they were born, all your
No,
brothers and
son,
sisters?
I'd be lucky to tell you when my birthday is.
No, I don't mean their birthdays, just their first names. All your brothers and sisters.
My oldest brother was Holmes, Holmes,
Okay,
and my next brother was Herval,
okay.
and sister was Miriam, and then another sister Cosette, and then a brother Ray
That's
Gosdin,
5 so far.
and then myself Vern,
You were the 6th.
and then there was Rex
7.
and Adam,
Adam.
and then there was one of our family was died at childbirth, so we never named that one.
I see. Boy, your father really had a load there to raise a
Yes, he
family.
did. That's another thing I didn't realize back then. I thought, but he really had his hands full. Yeah, I wouldn't want to do it.
So all the time you were farming, were you wanting to be singing?
Oh yeah, I did sing. We used to sing when we were working in the fields and things.
Well, I meant to leave the
Oh yeah,
the
that
farm.
was
and-
always my dream, to be able to do that.
Who is your inspiration? You are the inspiration for a lot of young singers who today try to sound like you. But who did you try to sound like?
I started out listening and loving the Louvin brothers, and I think I picked up on a lot of harmonies with them. And then later on, George Jones, Don Williams, Merle Haggard, Waylon,
See, you sound nothing like Waylon Jennings, but he is one of your heroes.
Oh yeah, I love the way Waylon sings.
What's your favorite song?
I've been asked that before. I don't really have a one favorite song. I've got a bunch of them. I just
See, I would pick if you're gonna do me wrong, do it right.
well, I got
You
some.
might pick Set 'Em Up Joe since it was just number one.
If I had to pick one, I'd pick one you probably hadn't heard. You know, a new one that I just wrote, and I'm going to record it on my next album. It's called "Do Me a Favor and Don't Do Me No Favors."
Vern Gosdin. Vern is, I think, to many country music fans, he is sort of a mystery man. I say that because I have read a lot of articles about you, but you don't reveal a lot of yourself. Are you a private person?
I'm sort of a private person, yeah. I don't know why. I just now we could probably get into some personal stuff. I don't know, but I just don't know, Ralph.
Are you married?
Well, I was, yeah.
But you aren't now.
I'll know tomorrow
Well,
when the divorce papers come in the mail.
I think I'll just cut that out.
You would?
I think I'll cut the question out.
Okay.
You have any children?
I got two boys. One's 26 and one's 28.
What do they do?
One of them works with me, sings harmony with me.
So he's a
Also-
part of your
and-
band.
Yeah, and the youngest one lives in Atlanta. He's married and he's working in.
You and Dean, the singer and writer Dean Dillon, have a very close relationship, don't you?
Yeah, we have for a long time, and I think Dean's probably one of the most talented people in Nashville. That everybody knows he's talented as a songwriter, but I think he's talented as a singer too, and I think the world about ready to find it out. And it's a pleasure having him out on the road with me. He goes out and opens my shows for me.
Have you written songs together
Oh yeah,
that have become popular?
Set 'Em Up Joe was one that we wrote together.
Tell me about the writing of Set 'Em Up Joe.
We were in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and there's four writers on the song: Dean, Hank Cochran, Buddy Cannon, and myself. And it just so happened we all just so happened to like Ernest Tubb, and we got talking about Ernest and the Texas Troubadour, and we thought, well, this would be an ideal time to write a song about him.
Now, didn't Ernest have an old song called Set 'Em Up Joe?
I don't know.
There was another old song called Set 'Em Up Joe. There was an old
There was?
pop song called Set 'Em Up Joe.
That's news to me. I didn't know that.
Tell me about the writing of If You're Going to Do Me Wrong, Do It Right.
Want the truth?
Yes,
Okay, Max D, I told you earlier that Max invited me out to write.
Max D. Barnes.
Max D. Barnes, and we wasn't doing a lot of writing. And I was telling him a story about my ex-wife. We decided to get a no-fault divorce, and that is where neither one of you has got to have a lawyer. You just go before the judge, and I give her everything and leave. And then one day I got a bill from her lawyer wanting me to pay it. And Max says, well, he says, if she's going to do you wrong, she may as well do it right. And that's where our first idea come from.
That was about 5 years ago.
Right about 5 years ago, yeah.
Wasn't that song up for an award?
It was nominated for Song of the Year. You know, they nominate 5 songs, and that was one of the 5.
I believe prior to that, you told me you had never even attempted to write a song.
Well, that's not altogether true. I did write a song that the Byrds recorded. You remember the old rock group, Byrds?
Yes.
They recorded it. And I wrote a couple more songs that wasn't even worth talking about.
Which song did you write for the Byrds, the hit rock group back in the 60s?
It was a song called Someone to Turn To.
I recall back in those years the Byrds did record what they called a country album.
This was on the album called Sweethearts of the Rodeo. It was on the soundtrack album.
Why do you call it a soundtrack?
Because there was a movie.
Called Sweethearts of the Rodeo?
I believe I'm correct.
I believe also that's where the current group, the two girls, Sweethearts of the Rodeo Girls, got the name for their group.
Maybe.
How did you get to know the Byrds?
I worked with them. Chris Hillman worked in the group with me, you know, the bass player for the Byrds, before he went with the Byrds. And Rex and I worked shows with him in like hootenannies and coffee houses back during the folk days, you know.
Tell people, a lot of people may not even remember what a hootenanny was.
Well, a hootenanny is where you gather for about 3 or 4 days out in the middle of a big park, and you just stay there. Everybody does, and have continuous music all day and all night.
Now, they don't use that word anymore.
I don't think
But
so.
Bluegrass Festival would be the same thing.
Yeah.
Or a rock festival. It's a music festival.
Hootenanny was a name I think was started in California, Southern California.
And didn't that feature mostly what they call folk singers?
Yeah, folk and bluegrass.
So that's where you got to know the Byrds.
And I remember when we were working together, the Stoneman family worked with us, In San Francisco, I believe they had a hootenanny.
The song, I can tell by the way you dance. Where did you get that song?
I got that song from a guy who works at RCA Records, Mark Wright. He gave it to me and says, "Here's your hit." Well, I listened to it and I thought it was a little bit too rock for me, and I didn't cut it for 2.5 years. And then Blake Mavis was producing me at the time, and I remember telling Blake, I said, let's just try this song, because Mark wouldn't get off of my back. He wanted me to cut it. And I said, let's try it for 5 minutes, and if everybody don't get into it real good, we'll knock off and go to something else. But they got into it, and it was my first #1 record.
Yeah, it really was a departure from the way you normally sing. You don't normally do the up-tempo songs.
No, not that wasn't my favorite thing to do. It took me a long time to get into up-tempo. Now, I've wrote some up-tempo songs that I'm doing on my next album that I'm kind of proud of.
What's going to be the next record?
Next single is the title cut on the album. It's called Chiseled in Stone.
Tell me about that song.
Max T. Barnes and I wrote that. Bob Montgomery told me in his office one day, he says, we need a knocked-out ballad to go on this album. He says, why don't you go write me one? So I went to Max D and we wrote Do You Believe Me Now? Took it back to him. And that, for a while, was going to be the title cut of the album. And he says, can you do it one more time? So went back and we wrote Chiseled in Stone. And then it turned out it was a title cut on the album. I wish he'd told me to do it again. I would love to wrote one more. But he didn't tell me and I didn't. So
you guys were kind of on a roll then, weren't you?
Yeah, pressure. Sometimes pressure helps. It really does.
Did you tell me a long time ago about a relationship with Buford Pusser?
Yes.
Now, Buford Pusser, I will qualify this conversation by telling you that he was the legendary sheriff from West Tennessee. They made many movies about, particularly the movie Walking Tall.
Walking Tall, yeah. #1, 2, and 3, I think they made.
They made three versions of that.
I'm not too proud of the fact that I used to own third interest in a little club in Chicago, but I did, and Buford was my bouncer. Paid him $15 a night to be our bouncer.
What was he doing up north? See, most of us who saw the movies, actually, I don't think that part was in the picture. We just remember him being sheriff in a West Tennessee county.
Yeah, Buford worked at a factory up there, and of course worked on the weekends as a bouncer.
So this was long before he became sheriff.
Yeah.
Did you ever know him during those notorious years when he gained a reputation as a rather tough-minded sheriff with a big stick?
Yeah, I'd run into him a few times, you know, and the last time I saw him was about a month before he had the car wreck. He was in at Cumberland Mall in Atlanta, Georgia, and Rex and I went out to see him. We got some pictures with him. Then about a month later, he had a car wreck.
Are you talking about the wreck in which he got killed?
Right.
Because I recall after he became very famous through the movies, he became such a star, a show business celebrity, that he would make personal appearances. And he would open, I know in Nashville, he helped open some automobile dealerships, things like that.
Yeah, well, he had a book, and he was doing an autograph session at the mall when I saw him.
Buford Pusser, apparently like a lot of young Tennessee boys, couldn't find work in Tennessee and went north to find work. At what age was he a bouncer for you?
Well, that's a good question, Ralph. I would imagine he was around 21, 22.
Vern, as a part of your life, I'm not sure about. I know you're one of 9 kids raised on a farm in Alabama, and then we find Vern Gosdin in Chicago owning a nightclub. And then
quite a switch, ain't it?
Yeah, that is quite a switch. What were you? Did you go north to find work?
Yeah, and I found work, and this little nightclub was a place we could make music. We had a band.
What was the name of it?
I don't even think we had a name, but we did all the music in the club, you know. And
country music.
Yeah.
And was it a pretty tough place?
Yeah.
I mean, if you had to have Buford Pusser as a bouncer in your nightclub.
The reason we went out of business, which is probably the best thing ever happened to us, was the police department there would take payoffs, and the guy we bought the club from had the police department on payroll. In other words, he paid them so much a week. They come in, and well, when they come in to collect from us, we didn't think that was quite fair, so we wouldn't pay them. And they put a 16-year-old, they picked up 16-year-old kid somewhere that had been drinking and brought him and put him in the club and then arrested him, and that put us out of business.
And accused you of selling to a minor.
Accused us of selling to him, yeah.
What'd you do after that?
I moved to Montgomery, Alabama, and was doing a show down there with my uncle, Reeb. We did, every day I think we had a radio show at WBAM.
Who were Reeb and Rabe?
Yeah.
Gosdin.
Well, Reeb Gosdin and Ray Perkins.
Is that what? Is that what?
Yeah, they
I
were
always thought that was Reeb and Rabe, the Gosdin brothers.
No, they got that name from letting their fans. They got it through the mail. They just announced that they wanted somebody to send them a name.
Oh, you mean they just went on the radio with no name?
Yeah, and with Joe Rumore, and somebody sent that name in to them, and they used it. Reeb and Rabe.
One was your uncle.
Reeb was my uncle. Yeah.
So you really sort of grew up in a show business family, didn't you?
Yeah. I liked the stuff that they did, and of course the Lubin brothers. They were in the same class with the Lubin brothers, except they didn't go to Nashville and record records. They had offers to, but they didn't do it. They wanted to be down there where, I mean, they would play like a high school auditorium or something. They'd have to put the show on sometimes 3 times to get everybody in. So,
I'm still trying to get you to Nashville. I've had you in Alabama. I've had you in Chicago.
Okay,
I've got you down in Montgomery. How'd you finally get to Nashville?
I went from Montgomery, Alabama to California and played out there I lived there 6 years. Then I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, went in the glass business and couldn't get it out of my blood, music. And at one point, because I did pretty good in the glass business, and I said I'm going to go to Nashville and pay for a session and try it just one more time. And I had a lot of nerve. I called Eddie, which I already knew that was managing Emmylou.
Eddie Tickner.
Yeah, and I said, I want to get Emmylou to help me do a session. And he says, well, I don't know, Vern. But he worked it out, and she flew to Nashville, did a session with me.
And that session had what on
Bless
it?
her little heart. It was Hanging On and Yesterday's Gone.
And that hit for you.
Yeah, both of them did, yeah.
Now, Vern, I've got to double back here for a second. You had made records previous to this with your brother, Rex.
Uh-huh. Well, during the 6 years we were in Los Angeles, him and I recorded together out there. But I decided that wasn't the place to do country music. You needed to be in Nashville. We moved to Atlanta, both of us, with intentions of winding up here recording, but then we decided to split up.
Vern, I wish you well. I thank you for sitting and talking with me, and I think good things are going to happen to you in the remainder of 1988. You're off to a great start with your #1 record, Set 'Em Up, Joe.
Thank you, Ralph. I appreciate it.
And now it's going to be chiseled in stone.
Right, uh-huh.